join me. Very pretty.
She did some there.
I was gonna ask you. Did she understand?
And 30 some years in my bush. That's mine, right? But she did the. That's okay. That's nothing. Takes the corner roll. Now we need. The chance for this weekend. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get the meeting going. First thing is, this is a public hearing day. So, is there anyone here from the public that would like to say something to Human Services or ask any questions from anybody?
Focus then on the 2024 human services budget.
Any comment? If somebody comes in later, we can maybe corner them on one of the other parts, but okay, well then let's move on. Okay, call to order the meeting, roll call. I think we have a full house for a change.
Go back. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay. We have a motion to close in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Okay, then we need the roll call and then the approval of the agenda and the minutes. Okay, Joanne makes motions for a second. Second, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, they are approved. Public comment, is there anyone from the public that wants to address the committee? Anyone from the public? Hey, then we move on to approval of contracts.
So the two contracts are listed there on the agenda. We have A&J Mobility, which is a vendor that provides vehicle modifications for individuals with physical disabilities through children's long-term support. And then we also have Civil Hop, which is providing respite and summer programming for children's waiver.
Okay, can I get a motion or do you have a question?
Do we do one contract at a time or all?
All together usually.
I'll make a motion to.
Okay, we have a motion by Tim, is there a second? Okay, the second by Donna, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the contracts are approved. Okay, the in-service.
Yeah, so June is Elder Abuse Awareness Month. So I invited Jody Vandervest to share her knowledge with our committee. Jody's been working with Human Services. I looked it up since July of 2005. Does that sound right? Sure. They're going on 18 years of public service. It's a long time. Jody truly is a gifted adult protective worker. I've always said that she is able to be direct with consumers and yet very compassionate. So we're very lucky to have Jody on our team for Human Services, and thanks for coming to share your knowledge.
Thanks. I don't have a lot. I'll go through it, and then if there's questions, I can answer them. But World Elder Abuse Day started in 2006. So this has been gaining steam since then. And it is an international day of awareness for elder abuse. And Wisconsin has taken this and made it pretty much their drive to have all 72 counties participate in this day and get us on the map that we actually recognize that World Elder Abuse Day is out there. So we did do some things this year, and I'll get into that a little bit. But I just some statistics that we had shared in another meeting. The global population of people aged 60 years and older will more than double from 900 million in 2015 to about 2 billion in 2050. So it's really important to have this World Elder Abuse Day. Approximately 1 in 10 Americans 60 plus will experience some form of elder abuse. 1 in 10. That's crazy to me. 5 million elders a year experience some kind of abuse. 79% of the abuse takes place in the elder's home. And approximately 76% of incidents are perpetrated by family members. So that's pretty staggering information right there in that little stats. So the way we kind of promoted our elder abuse awareness day here was that there was an article in the Suwannee County Star News, and I printed that. I'm sure some of you have seen that. I know Donna had shared with me, she saw my face. So that was in the newspaper. Newspaper is really awesome. You submit the article and it's right there for you. VIP and us, the Human Services, connected to do a banner and pinwheel. So for our specific stats, we had 44 elder reports in 2022. So they did a banner and 44 pinwheels on their lawn in Algoma, and that if you drive by there, you would still see that. And then we were able to order stickers as well as bookmarks, and the stickers were distributed as well as the bookmarks to the libraries as well as the dining place in Kewanee, and some were put in our waiting room. So this is probably by far the most we've done in recent years for World Elder Abuse Day. So we're slowly getting on board with the rest of Wisconsin counties. Some counties do a big thing. They do walks for Elder Abuse Day. They wear purple. They do presentations, but by far we're slowly getting up to speed with them. So I just wanted to bring to the forefront too that in 2023 so far, we have had 19 reports for elder abuse. So we're well on our way to matching the 44 probably plus. And the other, I know another statistic that everybody probably is interested in learning about is the financial abuse. So in 2022, we had close to $300,000 of elders that lost money in financial abuse.
Where do they lose it to?
Either scams or family members. So 300,000 in 1 year.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't have the stats for 2020. So I can open it up to any questions if anybody has any.
I have one.
You can take as many signatures as you want. That's what we have left over. The bookmarks are all gone.
What can you really do about the scams? I mean, my mother is 90 years old. Okay? I go there and visit, and I might be there in a couple hours. Look at like 6 calls on the phone.
Yeah, that is the hardest part to deal with is scams, because it just takes one time for them to respond and then they get them hooked. And typically we try to educate if we're aware of someone. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take law enforcement with me, and sometimes just that person in uniform telling them versus someone like myself just sitting at their kitchen table would recognize that maybe what we're saying is really truly in fact the truth, because they're so far into the scam that there's no way we can get them out of it. So it's hard. Families struggle.
And is there ever any chance of getting financial recovery?
So we encourage the Better Business Bureau to file a report there. It's a slim to none shot, but at least we have a log report. So if they ever were able to recoup money from the scams, that they would actually maybe possibly get a small portion back, but never what they're going to get back. And then I know the law enforcement, when we do tandem investigations, they also log it through their systems. So if there would ever be a windfalls through one of their reporting systems, that would connect. But typically, once it hits overseas or once it's mailed off to a PO box, you're not ever going to get that back. The only way you would ever get it back is if you could intercept it.
Jody, I think it's important to note too that individuals impacted by these scams are competent. They could be any of us in this room. the scammers are so good at what they do that, it just kind of blindsides people, and before they know it, they are so deep into it, their entire life savings is potentially gone.
A lot of times. what Judy is
So many of them
doing-
are so believable too, because I've been getting ones like they said it's social security calling. They need to talk to me about, to verify my number and my birthday, and they're gonna tell me what my new benefits are gonna be. Well, you know, by the time you give all that information about your bank account, your birthday and everything, you're done. But, you know, it sounds so real when they call you.
Very good at it, very skilled. And a lot of times what Jody is doing is providing that earth shattering information to someone that this is what happened. And then providing the emotional support. That's not a,
Yeah.
it's harder to cover the money and the financial impact of that is profound, but it's that piece of sitting with someone and processing it. Holy heck, this is what happened. Now how do we go forward? That's a huge piece of what you do. That is yes, prosecution and the information is important, but that piece is huge as well.
But I think if you, like for me, if I never answer my phone if I don't have a name come up on there. If I don't, even if, whether it's straight, you know, like a Kiwani number, which of course could be anything. Even if I'm expecting a call from a doctor or something, if I don't specifically recognize that number, because they're gonna leave a voicemail. You know, and in this day and age, I think everybody has that technology that you can see that number and that name. So if you would, you know, train people to don't ever answer your phone unless the name comes up, they'll leave a message and you could call them back a few minutes later. Because sometimes when I knew I was getting a phone call from a doctor in Green Bay, I see a Green Bay number and it's not, and I answer it and then it's not them. So I never do unless a name comes up.
I think you bring up a good point though, like there are ways to train around it and become more skillful about it. It feels a lot of times like we'll come up with a strategy like that and then our scammers just get one level better and figure out how to make it look like that call is money when it's really not coming from money. The other piece I think that what you said made me think of is, I think a lot of times, Jody, you can speak to this, what these folks prey on is loneliness.
Yeah.
Like folks want to answer that phone call, they want to have that contact, they don't have a ton of it throughout the day. And then you're talking to somebody and the scammers know, they know that they can prey on that, which kind of makes it worse.
That's a good summary. It really truly is like. We had, for example, we had one right after Christmas and she literally said it was Christmas time. I had lost my mom. I had lost my long-term partner. The phone rang and this slipped right into it because it was somebody calling her and the story really made sense to her because she believed in the cause that they were calling her about. And they were making contact with her over a really lonely time. And before she knew it, it was $30,000 gone. Oh. Yeah, and it's so hard to wrap your brain around it because the way these scammers are operating is one, you either get gift cards and you give them the numbers on the gift cards, or two, you're taking cash and you're pasting it with tape in between like a magazine, and then you put it in the mail and you mail it out, or you take a box and you put it the cash in the box and you UPS it. Like for me, I can't wrap my brain around the fact that someone is taking $100 bills and taping them in a magazine and mailing them off to a PO box and not stopping and thinking, doesn't seem right. But it's so well groomed into their mind of how it's supposed to work that they do it. And it's really sad when that realization hits. That money is gone and not coming back. That is the hardest part, like Corinne said.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Julie. And you're our financial person today.
Yeah, I was just telling Virginia that Brian said it was okay to share with you all that his sister passed away. So he is out of town at for funeral arrangements. So I am going to go through the financials with you all again this month. So we can start with the billing report, which is the one with the yellow and green on it. So in April, we billed $200,517. And we are averaging 226,600, which is 6.8% down on last year. The state aid report is next in the packet. For cars, you'll see, which is DHS. We claimed $612,000 so far this year. Spark, which is DCF, we claimed $553,000. Income maintenance through DHS, we claimed $104,000. And then GWAR, which is APS, Adult Protective Services, very little funding comes in for that, and we're at 5,400 there. I'm just gonna keep going. If you have questions, let me know. Next in the packet is the contract status report. The only one that we're really keeping an eye on here closely is family services, and that's something over the last several months we've been keeping an eye on. So family services provides crisis services for our agency, and then we also have a youth institutional placement there that we weren't expecting, so we may have to amend that contract if that individual stays there. Then you have the vendor payments. Total payments for the month are just over 181,000. Payments of note. Clinical data solutions, which is TPM, our electronic data system. We paid just over $6,000 for the TPM improvements. Family services again, 13,100. We have that youth aids institutional fee. Willow Tree is also in there. That's the Child Advocacy Center for forensic interviews. Our annual service payment of $7,500 was made this month. Also have the credit card sheets for managers in there. And then that brings us to the monthly financial report. That's the one that has the different columns, a few different colors on the top there. So at this point, we are at about 33% of the budget. We can start with administration there. First half of the year's basic county allocation have been maxed. Brian, I asked Brian about this. He said that we usually receive about 30% of our allocation the first half of the year, and then the 70% the second half of the year. So those payments will be resumed after July 1st. And then we have economic support. Revenues there at 30.8 and expenditures at 30.7. So we are in line there. Children and families, Chad's unit, including child protection and youth justice. Total revenues 46% and expenditures 36.4. No concerns there. Behavioral health, this would be a SUS unit, CPS program, AODA, mental health. The totals there are in the green line. Revenues at 26%, expenditures at 30.6%. Winnebago report indicates that we paid out about $66,000 through April. We typically are seeing a trend of Winnebago costs being a little bit lower in some of the summer months, and then they trend up a little bit in fall. So we will see what happens there. And then also just want to note in the behavioral health unit, typically we're seeing about $100,000 worth of revenue each month, and we're on track there.
I think we had we just covered a $26,000 credit.
Yeah. We'll see that on the next month's report, but we had a decent reimbursement from Winnebago recently. And then the Family and Community Services Unit, that's Corinne's unit of children's long-term support, birth to 3 and CST. That's back on the last page there. The revenues for that area are 33.6 and expenditures 36.5, so pretty on target there. And then the total human services, looking at revenues of 28.8%, expenditures at 34.2. So we're pretty on target. And Brian had noted that we are still looking at the 414,000 estimated for 2022. The audit, the financial audit did occur in May, and we'll have the final audit results sometime in August. Questions?
I just have a question on credit card report. How come we paid the Kin Sporting Fishing condo rental of $800 and some dollars?
Yeah, that one caught my eye too, Linda. That was for our youth who came out of the institution. They faced a period of homelessness, and we assisted their residents for short term. Dad happens to be a veteran, so we worked with Veteran Services as well to share the cost of that short term housing situation. And
We covered a week of it, so we got the veteran set up, and then VA covered the last 2 weeks, and then we are residing in Two Rivers, one apartment, so just the transitional phase where we're talking about our slumlord here in Kewanee. They did face eviction, so temporarily we were able to get them in Ken's condos outside of Oklahoma there. So we funded it the first week, and then the VA picked up the last couple weeks until they can get moved in on 5/1. They got into Two Rivers.
And that's done now?
Correct, they're Two Rivers at this point. I'd also like to note on the family services, we're hoping to discharge that youth September, October timeframe. So hopefully move that 13,000 a month that we are currently paying, and as their anticipated transition out of there is that September, October timeframe. So hopefully we'll live a couple more months of that.
Other financial question?
If you don't ask, you don't find out.
Absolutely.
yeah, it's good that you do.
I didn't want a fishing trip one day. I didn't want a fishing trip.
Yeah, I knew we were getting, but I didn't know that's who we were. Getting, and so.
Yeah.
That's why you're getting, so. Fair question.
All right, then we'll move into the director's report. So over the last several months, we've been discussing potentially developing the wraparound housing unit in our community. So our vision is that a transition home would be instituted to support at-risk youth, families working towards reunification, veterans, those recovering from mental illnesses and addiction. At our last meeting, it was requested that a summary be provided to you all. So that is in front of each of you. You have the written summary and then the one estimate that was received. So I just want to go over the highlights. Everybody found it? So to go over the highlights, again, the vision is to have the basic need of housing met, so those most vulnerable in our community could then focus on those higher level of needs, such as alcohol and other drug use, mental illnesses, things like that. Our agency would potentially wrap around the individuals residing in the home to support those substantial mental health services, AODA support, daily living skills training, parenting support, financial skills support, employment support, and assistance then transitioning into independent living. The project is financially prudent when we compare the costs of institutional care, such as Cholita or other mental health centers, to the cost of purchasing a home. The services needed could be provided by our agency staff and our community partners, and of course is reimbursable through programming such as CPS or TLTS. As we look at our budget surplus and our fund balance, this is a great opportunity for us to strongly consider a project like this because it would have such a strong impact on our community. Couple updates since our last meeting. I had referenced a second estimate that I was hoping would come through, and it hasn't. I did hear from that individual, and it sounds like a lot's going on, and I'm not certain that we'll get that second estimate. And as I had mentioned, of course, I had reached out and attempted to get many other estimates, and just because of the way that the construction field is going right now, this is not something that they were interested in touching. We had also talked about the concern about potential asbestos. Tim had mentioned or provided a reference for me to potentially have that asbestos testing done. I have been working with that individual. The test has been completed. We just don't have the results yet. He's thinking early next week we'll have those results. So as noted at the bottom of the proposal, we have a few different options for next steps for the home. Of course, first, we could look at showing further discussion and showing support of the project, and then potentially moving to the finance committee. Secondly, we could move forward with exploring purchasing another home for this project that wouldn't require renovation. Or third, we could not move forward with the transition of the housing proposal at all. So I just want to open it up for further discussion and answer any questions that may be spurred from that summary that was provided, or just other questions in general.
Also, I see in the fourth or fifth paragraph, you're using opioid settlement funds.
It's-
That's your plan.
That's just a proposal. In our discussion, it seems like it would be a really appropriate use of those funds, because we really would be honing in on those AODA issues for sure.
How much is it? How much did you get? Did the county get?
So I think it's over the 10 or 15 years. Tom, do you know the details on that?
I don't know the specifics, but I think it's supposed to get paid out over
Quite
a
a few
10-year
years.
term or something like that.
$100,000? Is it $200,000? Ballpark, or we're not?
I don't want to misspeak, but it's hundreds of thousands.
It's like
That's fair.
300,000
Yeah.
range.
It's more than 100,000. If the home were not used for this wraparound project, what would it be used for?
I think that the county's decision likely would be to sell it. Put it up for sale.
If I go to a sheriff's sale with it, like the county does when we get houses back, and it's on the courthouse steps, the house goes for $20,000. You bid on it, you buy it, the landlord takes it over and fixes it up.
I can tell you that this isn't an unusual idea for counties to, particularly with the housing part. I think we're trying to be maybe more unique and proactive versus what other counties may be doing, is the wraparound approach. With our CCS program, we have a fantastic program and a great opportunity to work with individuals who experience the mental health and their substance use, to provide them with the support to teach them the independence and to get them to gain the stability that they need to be able to get out on their own. And that's the ultimate goal. It's not to provide them with their forever home. It's about get them stable, teach them the skills that they need to maintain their stability of their mental health or their substance use disorder, and teach them the skills that they need to be independent in supporting themselves and their family. Because give them a house, housing for a day, teach them to be independent and teach them the skills that they need. Those budget, and we can do that through a fully funded program and provide them with the services and support that are going to have an impact on them for their life. And so that's where I think we're taking a different approach than other counties. And I think we could set a pretty decent precedent here and be quite an example. And then other programs such as PLTS, if they have children, I think of the one family with Toledo, what we could have done. We could have saved several thousands of dollars, and we could have been, supporting these youth and not having to be in the institution, while also supporting the head of the household and their mental health and the entire family as a whole, wrapping around them in programs that are funded, and while giving them and not having to be evicted from their home, and providing them whatever they're needing in the moment, with the goal of them being able to gain that stability, so that it's not, okay, now we're in this house here for now, and then 6 months from now we're evicted, or then we're back into chaos. And the hope is to to gain that sense of stability for long term. So we have, I think our plan is to, give us, it takes time. It takes time to work with people to really get them stable and to teach them what they need to be taught. And that's really what the hope would be. But they need to provide mentors.
I'll not repeat what Sue said, and I think that applies to both the LCS program, child welfare program. There are funds that if we are created, will supplement the needs of the adult or the children resources to cover that nicely. What I will say is that we've had a bit of an anecdotal study with our family from Toledo, the housing district. And having moved them now, and we can speak to this as well, having moved them now, they've moved into a stable housing situation. We have seen a decrease in behaviors of children. We've seen progress. We've seen the ability to move forward and possibly even scale back on my chickens, or possibly even scale back in some of the services, high level of almost institutional level services we've been providing. And that is with 1.5 of housing stability. So it's amazing what happens, and we don't focus enough on this. We talk about it in every program, mental health, substance abuse, block grants, none of that can touch basic needs, right? We get that from the feds and from the state all the time, but it's amazing what happens when you have a basic need like housing that not having to be worried about for just a short period of time, the foundation and the education you can build, like Sue said, that moves you into a space where you don't have to keep prices or band-aiding services for families because you built that foundation.
Which is unfortunate because the evidence there, you want to go back to the basic psychology, but the evidence shows that the basic needs of life aren't met. How do you work towards these other things? And many of the other programs, like, and the other funding sources allow us to support some of these needs. And that's where we struggle. It's constant chaos because we don't have the basic needs of life met. You don't know where you're sleeping at night. How do you worry about working on your mental health? Trying to figure out where you're gonna sleep at night and day.
And there'll always be an identified consumer family that comes through us. Usually, who's next? Currently, we have a pregnant lady who's within a residential facility, has no supports around her right now, so she's couch surfing, house hopping, still using, and pregnant. So like, not one ideal place for someone like this to get her stability, basic needs met. We can actually work on the day-to-day, work on that mental health. There's always going to be an identified family consumer that we can utilize this for.
And many of the individuals we work on who experience mental health or substance use issues, their natural support systems are worn out, or they're minimal, or at that they have their luck, and or they've just burned many bridges, so they don't have that person to go to ask for help. They don't have, oh, can you help me out here? They don't have it. So they come to us, and we're their last resort, we're their only resort. And as sitting on this end where I have what a tent for someone because they could get out of the psych hospital. The psych hospital wouldn't discharge them to homelessness. They would discharge them to the outside to buy a tent. You know how hard that is to have to buy a tent for someone so they have a place to go, but because they wouldn't discharge them to their car. I'd rather them sleep in their car than the tent, but I had to buy a tent for them.
It was a 10-day stop, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the reality of what it was.
People with mental health issues, people with substance abuse issues, people with children who have exceptional needs, you have to live somewhere. And oftentimes the issues that are needed for folks is about where they have to lay their head at night to have shelter. And that's one of the biggest issues for us. But when we sit on some of these other meetings, other committees, and we talk about things more globally, like federally or statewide, our idea here is that we are small enough, you've heard us say this, we can actually promote doing something different. And I care about this way for statewide or federally, I do, but I care most about what happens here. We truly can touch this. They have to ask yourself, what do we do? You have an idea, stop band-aiding maybe for a few families. What do we do? We promote, yeah, there's probably gonna be some issues, probably gonna be some mistakes. some unforeseen issues with cutting grass or snow removal, or maybe some folks who don't love this idea. What do we do as some of the movers in this county to promote something like this, if we believe?
I also think what the lady did about the tent for, if we had a place for her to go. She's decompensated, her mental health decompensated, she's been in an institution since last summer. So we've been paying 11 grand a month for her to be in an institution, so she decompensated. She had no place to live and she had zero rent. So that's the cost we pay for not having basic needs of life met. And I had a tent to offer her.
Any questions from committee members?
There are, as we get into Village Luxembourg, and I'm gonna play this as how they're looking at it. Have you had, I know we talked about having a conversation with them so they understand what this is about, because the neighbors around there might have the wrong idea. Did you go to the village board and talk with them?
No, I didn't, Tim, because I want, if this is going to die here, I don't want to cause more of a ruckus there. But if we have intention of moving forward, I'd be more than happy to go there and kind of talk through this. And honestly, if there's anybody, if we're gonna go forward with this, if there are other members of the committee that would like to stand by my side through that, excuse me, through that conversation, I'd be more than welcome to entertain that.
Are we, as a human service staff, going to be able to, I don't want to say, watch over this a little closer, this being the first time we're going to do something like this, so we don't get a black eye over it. And I know there's going to be problems with lawn cutting and snow removal, we get that, but just that we're aware, how are we going to take care of that? When the village calls up and says, the lawn isn't cut, we're going to find you $150.
One of the ideas we have is, and not even joking, like having a committee, almost like folks who are stakeholders. And I see if there are folks in Luxembourg, for example, who want to be a part of that. So part of my idea is Chad goes and cuts the grass. Part of my idea, or shovel the snow, or one of us says, okay, who's up for grass cutting today? Because that's not working. Part of my idea is you're invested in this with us. So we use it. And sometimes those questions are complicated, but I wish we were going to talk about grass. I feel like there are going to be other issues. So one of the ideas is, yep, we just figure it out amongst ourselves, which is what we do a nice job of here at Human Services. What needs to be done, go do it. Jan's degree is not in grass cutting.
I will do it though, and I'll do some
He's gonna
removal.
put his lawnmower on his truck and he's gonna go cut the grass. We're gonna execute that way to make sure we don't have those problems that are creating issues that are not issues. But then also, what is our community in this? So building over time that, we know this is important. We're doing something for some folks that is working well. Who all is involved in that, not just our humans.
I think the negative stigma is probably going to be the biggest barrier versus the.
I think we have to-
With you, that'll be a bigger hurdle than the basic maintenance of the grass.
To give you a clear answer, this would be our baby. We would make it happen. One of the approaches that I was considering, if we were to move forward with talking with the village, would be to hone in on the statistics of service provided to those within the village. There are plenty of individuals working with human services who are residing in the village already. There's a decent chance the individual or the family that would reside in that home might already be within the village.
And I will make a motion that we move forward.
I have a question yet on here. Is there anything that needs to be done with remodeling kitchen and bathroom?
Yep, so you have a copy of the estimate from Brett's, which details that there is substantial remodeling that would be required. It is more so the nuts and bolts of the home. So the kitchen actually looks fine, right? But it's the plumbing and the electrical windows, things like that, that need to be put in place or ensured that it's up. functioning.
That's okay. The kitchen is okay.
Yeah.
Well, make a comment about domestic abuse violence and prevention project. Went through the same thing many years ago before they bought the building. Going was saying how people needed a place to live if you were a battered wife and you had children or whatever, and you could live there up to a year. When we put all this stuff together, what we had to do with it, And then we put something out front saying we want to do this, and we put almost like a, we had this thing that you could go in and it showed this is what we need and how much money did we raise. It was only up about a week and a lady came forward that wasn't even from Wisconsin and paid the whole bill. Because she said she had family members that were in that kind of situation and she wanted to make sure nobody else had to do that. So I don't know if you've ever looked at the fact that if we do the building, if there is something that people would come forward, because there are enough people that truly believe in this and are looking for a cause to donate to, so. Because like the VIP, it was probably 2 weeks and the building was paid for, and we were trying to figure out how to fund it for the whole year, and
How many people can live in this home?
There are 3 bedrooms upstairs and 1 bedroom downstairs.
So you can only can put 4 people there.
We would expect it to be 1 family at a time, so potentially mom, dad, and then the little.
So if you had the problem and I was your parents, I would move in there with you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, it depends on who it is specifically that needs the treatment. Perhaps it's mom and dad that need the AODA treatment. They would reside there with their children and continue to care for their children in the home while receiving the.
So you're doing a family at a time. Not,
That multiple.
Here, there, and
families,
everywhere.
Right. Be 1 residence.
so would an individual eligible to live there on their own?
Yeah, it's a big house for
And
1
so there's-
person, but.
You get them on their feet, even though you have 4 bedrooms.
Right, so what I would envision is there would be an application process for anybody who is interested in participating in the process of having this housing arrangement, but also being willing to commit to the wraparound services. So of all of the applicants that we received, then I would propose that those go to that committee that Corinne was referencing, and then that committee would decide who would be potentially served next in the home. So yes, Donna, if it's 1 person, living independently by themselves, but they have the most intensive needs, I would guess maybe the committee would decide to move forward with them.
what if you have a family in there and another family has to come in, then what?
We would serve the family that's currently residing there. They certainly would have precedence until their services are no longer needed. We're not gonna give them the boots to serve somebody else.
I think we have an advantage of being in a small county where we can talk about this kind of
Yeah, I think you're totally right, Rose. We've had conversations with community partners, and I'm thinking of a conversation with Sheriff Josky. Many of the high needs individuals that we're serving, they're also serving. So, together we can kind of combat some of these target issues and serve some of these same high needs families together and really see an impact in our small community.
And even if we could prevent 1 residential placement a year with this, that's at 11 grand a month for the last year for an individual. I think of the cost on that. So even if it's a family or individual, if they're at higher risk of a residential placement, they would probably take precedence to wrap our services around them instead of having that significant cost each month that we're gonna pay at a residential facility. So I think we would, like I said, prioritize it type of stuff, but there's always gonna be a need. That's the end result of this is there will always be a need for someone to be in this transitional.
And certainly the financial impact is legit that you're sharing, but there also is trauma associated with individuals residing in an institution long-term. We just had somebody return after being institutionalized for 8 months, Sue, right? And de-institutionalizing them is quite a process. They become so used to that strict, predictable type environment. And then when you try to transition them back into the community where that doesn't exist, more crises are likely to arise.
Sure, the trauma I experience when they go in there. Or we do it, and yeah,
Well, I would like to see us do the #1 choice, because we can't lose on remodeling the building. If it doesn't work out for us, you put the building up for sale and we recoup our money anyway. So it's not like we're making an investment that we're gonna permanently lose 150,000 or whatever. No, I think it makes sense to try it.
So I think Tim has the motion on the floor, right? So are we looking for a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay,
With-
well, I'll.
I don't know if there should be a caveat on the motion that we're gonna try to use opioid funds to pay for it. And
If it's there, you can use it, yes. Either way, my motion will be for this. This is a minor amount of money for a very important situation that once again, we will not lose money on. I mean, if we fix the house up, you're gonna flip it and make money. The market's that way.
so after you've talked to Luxembourg and everything is gonna roll into the, I would assume you're the county finance.
So get an agenda item and have you guys help me walk through that process, right?
The motion second to at least go forward with the project, and that's a good thing. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, we're good to go forward.
I really appreciate your support. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a couple more updates from Dana. Want to welcome Krista Dick, sitting next to Corinne. She is actually one of Sue's new staff members. So she started with our agency on June 5th. She's in the CCS, Comprehensive Community Services Facilitator position, and also doing the crisis coordination role. She is fitting in amazingly well with our agency. We're very excited to have her here. And then I also wanted to highlight that we have Brenda Vandermust here for one of our first meetings. So as mentioned, the last couple of months, Brenda and Lynn are switching a few of their tasks within the agency. That process is, I think we can say, nearly complete. They're both doing amazingly well in their new roles, and it's interesting to see the different level of energy coming out of that. So thank you for all of that work to make that happen. One other note regarding positions. So last month I mentioned that we had 17 applicants for the economic support position, and we were moving forward with math testing on May 25th and interviews on June 5th. Unfortunately, even though most of those applicants were invited to test, only 3 showed up. We intended to interview all 3, and one of the 3 withdrew before interviews, which brought us down to 2. We interviewed those 2, made an offer to one, and she declined. She had accepted another position. It was decided the last remaining candidate would not be a great fit for the agency, so the position is again reposted. Wanted to just stress that it felt that the wage scale again might be impacting that pool of candidates. The one that withdrew prior to interviewing indicated that she received an offer substantially higher than the pay rate that we were offering. And I did not hear back as far as the reason the person we had offered the position to, why she declined. So I'm not sure if the wage played a part in that or not. But please be aware that that position again is reposted, and we'll be looking to hopefully hire somebody from that economic support. Okay. Also wanted to highlight that we had the volunteer driver training held earlier this month. Areas of focus were basic first aid training, which was provided by Rory Russell, and then dementia care training was provided by the ADRC. Thank you to all of the volunteers who attended, and also to Corinne, Lori Bushy, Brenda Vandermust, and Lynn Clark for organizing the training. It was another great training. I think that's it for me. Any general questions about human services?
Is there anything else to come before the board here? No, then we'll fix our next meeting in July. Does July 20th work for people at 8 o'clock? Okay, well then, the only thing I need is a motion to adjourn.
July 20th, is that?
Yeah, at 8 o'clock. Okay, motion to, okay, we have a motion by Paul. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, Mary Ann, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.